Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jeff Culbert, Schooley's Mountain Chiropractic Center, and today I want to talk to you in kind of a healthcare class format. And what I want to talk today about is stress. And as a chiropractor, I deal with stress on a multitude of levels with multitudes of patients day in and day out. And I always ask my patients when we are starting to work together, especially in the beginning and so much is going on, is what is the stress that is being created in your life, or why are you holding on to so much stress that is keeping muscles tight? As muscles are tight, it pulls on the bones of the spine and the bones of the extremities to create the spinal subluxations that people ultimately are coming in with. So part of what my job is to remove the interference to the nervous system, and that is to adjust your spine and to adjust the extremities so that the nerve can freely express itself. But ultimately, that subluxation, creates the nerve interference, but we want to get ultimately deeper down and ask what is creating that subluxation to occur in the first place. And it is going to be stress. And when I talk about stress, I will ask patients, what stress are you under? And inevitably, probably about a third of my patients will admit to being under stress, and 2/3 will do not. And as I start to explain to them what stress is, they start to have that aha moment when they realize that they've been selling themselves a bill of goods that just isn't so. They are under stress 24/7, 365 days a year right now. And if you don't believe me, when I tell you what stress is ultimately going to come down to, you're going to have that aha moment yourself. So what is stress? Stress simply boils down to your body and your mind's ability to adapt and accommodate to change. And trust me, our world is changing at rapid amounts in every aspect of our lives. And we have COVID to thank for that partially as well. How much did our lives change dramatically with lockdown, masks, vaccinations, not vaccinations, the election, the economy, the war in the Ukraine? There's so much stress around us all the time. But stress breaks down into two basic components. There's eustress, which is positive stress. Your body meets a challenge, and then it has the ability to relax and calm down. And then there's distress. Distress starts to occur when stress is mounting and mounting and mounting, and you're always meeting a challenge, always meeting a challenge, and always meeting a challenge, but never allowing your body that time that it needs to relax and calm down, to literally de-stress, to bring down the heart rate, to bring down your blood pressure, and to get the blood sugar back to a normal level. Every single one of us has a stress threshold, and when we're constantly under stress and it's mounting and it's mounting and it's mounting and it's mounting, eventually we reach our own personal stress threshold. And when we reach our personal stress threshold, our body will start to break down. And how does it start to break down? Well, the first common symptom of stress is that of fatigue. How many people are walking around fatigued? And we're going to get into how do we stop and reverse stress. And as we're talking about how we reverse stress, we're going to get into the specifics as to why we end up getting fatigued. But the next thing that starts to happen when we become fatigued is inevitably we want to try to get out of that fatigue as quickly as possible. And the easiest way for most of us to do that is to start to reach for the junky food, the refined sugars, the caffeinated products, the super energy boost drinks, And ultimately what happens is we rise our energy levels up and then we crash dramatically so that we get more fatigued and we go through this vicious cycle. I'm fatigued, so I eat like garbage and I crash, and I eat like garbage and I crash, and I eat like garbage and I crash. And the third thing that comes out of that is then ultimately all of a sudden you start to notice you are gaining weight, because one of the body's biochemical reactions when you're under stress is to burn through your sugars and start to store your fats. So as you're eating like garbage, you're burning through your sugars, you're craving more and more sugars, and then you're storing fats and you're starting to gain weight, and you're starting to notice that it's difficult to get this weight off, especially the older you get. And then ultimately what happens after you've gone through these first three universal symptoms of stress that I call them, your body starts to break down by its first weakest link and then starts a series of weak link breakdowns. So some people may start to notice they're fatigued, they're eating like crap, they're starting to gain weight, and then they're starting to get back pain. They're starting to get neck pain, headaches, menstrual cramp, a variety of different things such as fibromyalgia and joint jumping pain. So the list goes on and on and on. There's literally 1,000 different things that can go wrong in the human body as a result of stress and your body breaking down sequentially, 1 week link to 1 week link to 1 week link to 1 week link. So the key is we want to stop and we want to reverse this process. But again, not only is there eustress and is there distress, there is also 3 types of stressors that our body is constantly under, day in and day out. And when I break those down, it's into 3 basic components. That of emotional stress, which everybody understands. I'm worried about a test. I'm worried about my kids. My husband doesn't pick up his socks. What's going on at work with a coworker or a boss? We know what emotional stress is. It's those things that we tend to worry about, and our brain just tends to not let us put down a large portion of the day. But the other 2 components of stress are something that most people don't even think or realize, and that is that of physical stress. And what is physical stress? Well, that can be something as simple as going through the birth process. Okay? It is a physical stress for baby and mom to go through labor and delivery and to have that baby. And then there's the simple slips and falls that we go through. What is our posture like, and how are we sitting? How are we standing? How are we lying down? What is the exercise that we're getting or not getting? What is our occupation, and how does that affect our posture and the typical activity that we get to do every day? So there's a variety of different stressors that can be considered physical stress to our bodies. And then we talk about what goes on with biochemistry and the chemistry of the body, and what can be stressors to our body's biochemistry. Well, that can be something as simple as the air that we're breathing, and what are the toxins and the impurities that are within the air. It can be related to what is in our diet, and are we eating technically clean, or are we eating dirty foods and foods that are genetically modified? What are the supplements that we are taking or not taking? Are we taking the appropriate supplements for our age and our station in life? Or are we just taking something randomly? And the other thing that we have to talk about is what are the medications that we're taking? Both the illegal substances as well as the legal prescribed substances. Every medication has a side effect, and that side effect will ultimately put stress on our body. So when we look at stress from a physical standpoint, an emotional standpoint, and a biochemical standpoint, with the world that we live in, every single one of us is under some form of stress every single day. So it becomes incumbent upon us to learn how to be effective stress managers. And so for the next couple of minutes, I want to talk about what are some of the basic, easy things that you can do every day to counteract the ill effects of stress as it's affecting us as a society, individually, and as a group in the world today. And the first component of stress or de-stressing that I'm going to ask you to do is something as simple as aerobic exercise. Aerobic exercise is getting out and breathing, getting oxygen into the tissue. As you are breathing aerobically, you are starting to change your body's chemistry so that those sugars that you're burning during your stress events and the storage of the fat, remember, aerobic exercise starts to burn fat. So we want to talk about you getting exercise, aerobic. And aerobic can be done whether it's walking, whether it's swimming, whether it's cycling, running, dancing. There's a lot of ways to get aerobic exercise and activity. You can also be exercising aerobically when you're lifting weights, so long as you're not pushing to exhaustion where you can't breathe, but you're going at a rhythmic rate with a weight that's light enough so that your heart rate never exceeds its maximum number, clipping you into an anaerobic state. So anything that you can think of that you can monitor your heart, that it brings it down to that state, and the easiest formula to remember is 180 minus your age, give or take 5 or 10 beats. Once you're in that aerobic zone, you stay there for 20, 30 minutes, and the older you get, unfortunately, the longer you got to be in it. So sometimes up to an hour to 90 minutes. But again, it's aerobic exercise. And when you think that you were a little kid and you were bored and you were stressed out, what did mom always tell you to do? Mom would tell you, just go outside and play and you'll feel better. The next component with exercise, always aerobic. You want to do stuff that promotes balance, flexibility, strength, and endurance. Because ultimately you have to realize if we're here on this planet to live anywhere from 80 to 120 years, life is an endurance race. And you've got to be focused on the things that build cardiovascular fitness, strength, flexibility, balance, but most importantly, endurance on the long haul. The next component that we're going to talk about of de-stressing and helping our bodies to cope better with stress is that of what that we do with our diet. And as I said before, most of the time when we're under stress, we reach for the refined sugars, the candies, the cakes, the cookies, the colas, the coffees, the alcohol. Okay, we reach for those comfort-oriented types of foods. And when you're doing that, I want you to stop and think. Those are refined sugars. We want to focus on the more complex carbohydrates and the complex sugars and the proteins. For the simple reason it takes longer for those foods to break down. A refined sugar is broken down and out through your system in 15 to 20 minutes, maybe a half hour tops. But when you're putting in a complex sugar like a fruit or a bread, a vegetable, you're going to be taking upwards of close to 2 hours to break down that food. More steady, slow shots. It's like instead of dumping it all in at once, it's little fuel injection shots of the sugar that you need to maintain your energy over a longer period of time, thus avoiding that crash. The next thing we talked about was proteins. Proteins has a nitrogen on it, and biochemically, okay, the only difference between a complex carbohydrate and a protein is the nitrogen. It takes about 2 hours or 4 hours to digest a protein through your system. Even a better source of keeping that balanced sugar coming through over a longer period of time. The next thing we want to talk about besides nutrition is hydration and hydrating up. Your body needs a minimum of half your body weight in ounces of water a day. And if you're not hydrating, again, a very common symptom is that of fatigue. Your immune system gets compromised, your joints get compromised, your muscles are compromised, your digestion is compromised, all by simply not drinking enough water. So when we're talking about stress on a biochemical level, hydrating up and avoiding some of those unfortunate things like coffee, alcohol, sodas. Water was the first thing that was put here on this planet. It's the safest thing that we can be drinking, so focus on at least half your body weight in ounces of water a day. And those days that you're outdoor and it's like today, it's 90 degrees almost, it's humid and you're sweating a lot, think then I need more like 2/3 my ounces of body weight in water a day. And that's the goal and the guideline for being hydrated. As we move on from exercise and nutrition and hydration, we want to talk about sleep. Sleep is one of those things that is so critically important to your health and well-being. I can't emphasize it enough. And about 100 years ago, the average person was sleeping roughly 9 hours and 15 minutes a day. And with the advent of the electric light bulb, thanks to Thomas Edison, we are now sleeping a robust 6 hours and 30 minutes. The problem with that is we are now pushing sleep deprivation. When you look at the average individual based on the National Sleep Institute studies, and there's a couple of different ones that I'll refer to, needs between 8 hours and 15 minutes as a minimum to as much as 9 to 11 hours a day. So when you think back 100 years ago, we were getting 9 hours and 15 minutes. That was a pretty good compromise between those two studies. Now, because of internet, late night TV, cell phones that can be on 24/7, our computers. We are a society now that sacrifices our sleep to get things done. And the problem is we need the sleep to release growth hormone. Now, as you're my age and you're older or younger, growth hormone is critically important for us to have tissue healing and repair. And as a chiropractor, trust me, I am interested in patients and my tissues healing and repair. Our bodies heal when we're resting, and the greatest portion of rest that we get is that of sleep. So we need somewhere between 8 hours and 15 minutes to as much as 11 hours. Now, if you're somebody who's worked your way down to 6 hours, 7 hours, because people like Arnold Schwarzenegger are out there, well, sleep less, okay, or sleep faster, you are robbing yourself of your body's ability to heal and repair. When you look at the world we live in today, the average person is now in the United States on their devices, cell phones, computers, laptops, roughly 51 hours a week. And that translates into roughly 8 hours or more every single day on your device. So if you're supposed to work 8 hours, do everything else in 8 hours, and sleep 8 hours, we now have to compromise either our work, our sleep, or our do everything else, our recreation time, and rob from each of those. So the goal is focus on your sleep. If you are getting 5 hours of sleep or more for 5 days, you are technically entering a pre-diabetic state. And if you notice you're not as mentally as sharp, Alzheimer's is known as diabetes of the brain. So if you're not sleeping, you're not recuperating, you're not getting your REM, you're not getting your deep sleep, you're robbing your body's ability to heal and repair, and your brain's ability to process information and all the day's activity that goes on. So if you're noticing I'm sleep deprived and I can't remember things and my body's falling apart, you really should be focusing on proper amount of sleep. And there's a couple of ways you can monitor that. One would be with like an Oura Ring or a Fitbit. They will allow you to tell you how well you've recovered in your sleep. Okay, what was the amount of deep sleep that you had? What was the amount of REM sleep? And give you a sleep score. So if you're 80 or above, that's good. 90 and above is excellent. If you're sitting there at 70 or below, you need to work and focus on your sleep. The next thing we want to talk about is your posture. Your posture needs to be maintained and kept in a nice state, whether you're sitting, standing, or lying down. So hopefully you're sitting here noticing this video saying that, gosh, Dr. Jeff has great posture. Well, you know, it wasn't always that way. I can tell you that when I was a kid, my mom and my grandmother were always yelling at me, stand up straight, sit up straight, because I would love to slouch. And over the years, especially through chiropractic school, I understood that the value of a good posture is that reduces the stress that is applied to your spine and therefore your nervous system. And the nervous system is going to go out and control everything that your body does. Muscles, joints, organs, glands, skin, everything gets controlled and coordinated, and good health is there because there's less stress on your nervous system. Less subluxation, less nerves getting pinched, less organs, glands, muscles, joints, and skin being affected by that pressure. So cognitively, think about your posture. And if you're somebody that has gotten into a slouching posture and is used to that, it's going to take a little bit of work. Doing some exercises and some stretches and just cognitively thinking about, I need to maintain good posture every single day and every moment of every single day. And there's simple exercises that we'll be introducing in a later video that will go over how can you easily start to bring good posture on a regular basis into your day. The next component of de-stressing that we want to talk to in the next couple of minutes is that of your attitude. Okay, Lance Armstrong was famous for saying in the fight against cancer, okay, knowledge is power, but attitude is everything. There was a study done a number of years ago, and a gentleman by the name of Robert Cooper pointed this out in a seminar that I was at, that the average child laughs between 250 and 400 times a day. And when you think about the sponge that those kids are, and the life and the joy and how they heal and how they move and how flexible they are, there truly is value in the age-old saying that laughter is the best medicine. Now, as we fast forward through our lives, you're going to start to notice that once you start to hit the age of teenager and puberty and into young adulthood, okay, about the time that midlife starts to set in, about 42-ish, that you stop laughing as much as you did when you were a little kid. Remember, when you were a little kid, somebody would slip and fall down. You'd be busting a gut. Somebody would say, hey, pull my finger, and you're busting a gut. Okay, it was the stupidest father joke that you have ever heard, and somebody's busting a gut laughing. But once we get into puberty and up to midlife, we start to laugh on average about 15 to 75 times a day. It's better than none, okay? It's not nearly as robust and vibrant as when you're laughing at almost everything and every occasion, including yourself and the environment that's going on around you. Life is to enjoy. Don't get caught up into problems. Laugh a whole lot more. And as we bypass midlife and we're getting into our senior and golden years, where we should be retiring, enjoying life to its fullest, those people that are midlife to seniors and unfortunately death, they're laughing about 0 to 15 times a day. So if you compare a senior citizen or an octogenarian or a centurion, okay, most people are stiff, they're stuck, they're rigid, okay? They're no longer growing and expanding, okay? And things are just more in retraction for their bodies, both physically and mentally. So if you look at laughter and attitude, please remember, laughter is your best medicine. Laugh at as much things as you humanly possibly can. And to help with the attitude, get into the habit of saying affirmations. I was taught affirmations probably about 35 years ago. And one of my favorite affirmations is simply stating that I am, and whatever follows that I am, I'm looking to make sure that it is either the truth about me now or the truth that will be about me in the future. So my favorite affirmation, I start every single day with this, is I am a happy, healthy, vital, active, successful human being. I affirm this day that all tissues, organs, and glands are functioning perfectly in my body, and that is the way it is supposed to be. I'm more relaxed than ever before because I choose peaceful and loving thought and release my fears, worries, and anxieties. Tension is gone because I create an atmosphere of ease and confidence. My mind is uncluttered because I set specific goals and action plans for everything that goes on in my life, and so on and so on and so on. I got to tell you, when you start your day that way, there's very little that's going to shake you because you know in your core who you are and that everything that is going on in your life is planned by you, and that with the help of chiropractic and the use of affirmations, you are flexible enough to adapt to the changes that are occurring in your life that keep stress to a minimum versus stress building as high as possible. And the last thing I want to talk to you about today is the value of regular chiropractic care, as it helps you to decrease the stress. So let's face it, we're under stress all the time, as we've now come to realize. Physical stress, emotional stress, biochemical stress. And that gets us into a state of fight, fright, or flight. So our muscles are tense all the time. And when muscles get tight and are overcontracted, they're going to start tugging and pulling on their origin and insertion. And part of that insertion is going to be on the spine. And when the spine subluxates or moves slightly out of position to the vertebra above and below it, it starts to put pressure on the nerve. Not enough pressure that it kills the organ or gland or the tissue that it's supplying, but it's just enough so that it makes it a little bit harder for that muscle, that joint, the organ, the gland, and the skin to work. It would be much like if I come over here and I turn down the dimmer switch, and I turn it down about halfway. You can still see me, I can still see you, I can see everything that's going on in the room, but slowly my eyes are working a little bit harder to see in this environment, which means my muscles get a little bit tighter at the base of my skull, which then translates down to muscles to my upper traps getting tighter, eventually into the shoulder blades, down into the spine. And before you know it, there's a multitude of areas that are being affected just because the dimmer switch turned down by 50%. A subluxation takes away that dimness. A subluxation can create as much as, about 25 to 50% reduction in nerve supply coming out of the spine. So by adjusting the spine, wherever those subluxations are, neck, mid-back, low back, pelvis, an extremity, an ankle, a foot, wherever the nerve is being impinged upon, we are going to start to balance how the function of the nervous system starts to occur. The first thing we'll start to do is relieve symptoms. The next thing we'll start to do is make a spinal correction. And then we're going to support tropic, long-term, wellness-oriented care that will literally, chiropractic is a lifestyle, not a treatment. We are going to be adding life to your years and years to your life because of the concept that we are reducing the stress that creates the vertebral subluxation that is ultimately irritating the nerve. Now, this has been our basic healthcare class as it relates to stress in a rather short and quick period of time. It's a data dump of information, and I hope you play this back numerous times. As you review this material once, twice, 3 times or more, I hope it answers your questions and helps to set you on a path of at least making one change this week and another change the next week and another change the week after that. Because if you try to do everything at all at once, you will get stressed and you will do nothing. But if you conquer one thing at a time, 1 week at a time, by the end of the year, you made 52 positive changes to help you consistently and constantly keep stress reduced in your life. So I hope you found this information useful. If you have any questions or comments, please hit the comment section, hit like and subscribe to our channel. And if you're at all interested in contacting us in the office, please visit our website, and we'll see you in a future video. Thank you very much for your attention.